Martin checks went very well, which should have been.
I eventually figured it out. You put underlines underneath things. I just, sometimes I'm too prepared and then you change shit and then I'm like, I get like too much chaos because I don't want change in my life. I don't really want change in my life. If things could be like the way they were 20 years ago.
Don't kill the messenger.
And that would make a big difference. Well, it shouldn't, because what that does is captures all the money that's going from the Fed, goes from the Fed to the state in the back in our local community. So if they're paying lease, it goes back into the county. Right now, it's flowing back in, but it's going to Watertown Savings Bank. That doesn't help the county, you know? Your name is Charlie Schwartz. Dr. Schwartz, good morning, sir. How are you? Very good. You're looking dapper as always. Thank you. Oh.
It's like everything goes in and it never goes out.
Listen, you down here at the end of the table, I want you to behave yourself. We're broadcasting this.
That's right, because we're all smiles, so nothing wrong here.
You've been busy lately, haven't you?
No, that's fine. This one said Rob, the other one, do I have to initial here too? Oh, yeah. I've never signed on. Am I supposed to?
I didn't pay attention to the list because I was a greeter, and I occurred to me, and I walked in, and he's there, and he goes, "Welcome to Rotary," and I said, "Oh, let me."
Anybody can scribble my initials. They look different every single time.
And
It's security.
He did happy hours yesterday. He went up with $10 and said he was happy for having to go to the community and meet people here, serve the city. He didn't mention about the year-end audit. We were over budgeting on revenue and under budgeting on expenses, and he said, "I just, want to say and thank you for we came in better than the budget or something like that." So
He's a good man.
I thought that was a pleasant.
Yes, well, you introduced him, remember that?
Yeah.
And there was a lot of plans afoot. I think fluctuates and Friday, so we can all during the intro.
Greg, do you need a packet?
We're gonna get, we'll have to start now, but hopefully.
Yeah, well, because of what went down, I don't know how they're gonna do it, but I think they're gonna add a policy about take the whole thing, your subordinate knows about it. I don't know how legal that is.
Well, you're not supposed to take any conversation without.
I believe you can between two people, as long as one of the parties, yeah.
New York law is, as long as one of the parties consents, you can do it.
Yeah, but I think if it's more than the two people, then it's a problem, I think.
We ran into that in the broadcast business. That was always,
I don't want this recorded. There you go.
yeah, right, exactly. That's why you're little beeps, used to live beeps and stuff. That was a real conversation.
Yeah.
So, anyway, sometime we're gonna talk about some other stuff.
Yeah, maybe you can bring somebody for Sewell's Island.
I brought somebody to Sewell's Island
I know.
2 years ago, and we struggled with getting anybody to move on it.
Well, it's mostly remediated now, so.
Well, fortunately, it's a lot of us.
When you do the wax re-energy.
Yeah, it's not really complicated.
I just don't want to pull them out.
Good morning. I just wanted to do it. Probably ask you.
We're bringing the wax.
Yeah.
Because it could be a rumor.
Morning, everyone.
Bill's not
Please
giving
stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. With that, I'll call to order the February 2020 Jefferson County Local Development Corporation. Privilege to the floor. No one here. We all received minutes in our packets. Is there any additions and or corrections?
No, sir.
I move the minutes, but I didn't written.
With the motion in a second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Treasurer's report, Rob?
Page 6 of your packets, just a snapshot of where we are 4 months in, pretty linear, we're on target. These accounts tend to be close to budget anyway, and it's by design. But we are on target on the revenue side, and we are spending a little less than budget currently on the expense side, which are both good things. Pages 7, 8, and 9 of your packets are just snapshots of the major agencies, major groups within the Development Corp. Again, both on target. I think the only one was page 9. We spent a little bit more than budgeted for a good program, workforce development, but was that a surprise or just?
That's a pass-through.
Okay.
That's
All right.
that's the grant.
It's not a big budget, but it was double, so I
Yeah.
just thought I was pointed out. And on page 8, I was gonna ask also a question, while on the allocated expenses for this marketing program, we seem to be significantly less, or will that catch up as we go?
We will probably catch up.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just were,
Yeah.
again, they try to make things linear, but they're not.
I wish they were.
It'd be easier for everybody.
Make my job easier.
Okay. Page 10 of your packet, your balance sheet, our quick assets are about 12,000 lower than prior period. Receivables about 17,000 prior, total assets, total assets about 11,000 lower than prior period. Total liabilities about 25,000 lower than prior period, and total capital is up 14,000 from prior period. Page 11 are just showing the major loans that we have in this Development Corp. And on page 17, I'm assuming northern tier says records. I'm assuming this has to do with the records room.
Yes, it
Okay,
does.
just never
Yes.
saw that one before. And
That's brand new.
not a small number.
No, I think the project is nearly finished.
Okay. That's the treasurer's report. I would move to accept as presented.
There's a second. Any questions? Comments? On the motion, all in favor, aye? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Committees, alternative energy. Is there anything?
Bill is unable to be at the meeting this morning. I would just tell you that OIA finally is about to close, I believe, next week. Just to give you a sense of how long these things take. And as soon as that closes, I'll certainly let you know. There has been no changes, Joe.
No changes, it's not formally scheduled yet, but next week or beginning of the week after.
We've had other interest in alternative energy projects, but no further applications other than what we've talked about. So not much happening unless Paul has something to add to.
No, do we know if OIA is energized yet?
I do not know. I've been so interested in getting it closed, I haven't figured out whether it's energized or not, but that's a good point. I don't know, we can find out.
Yeah, part of the delay was they just recently recorded their lease agreements, so.
The other thing I would say is the Times had something in their social media that I found confusingly. They have this proposed project in the Sackett's area, and they talk about how soon Sackett's residents will be able to take advantage of community solar. Well, they need to start reporting that anyone can take advantage of community solar here in National Grid's territory. You don't, it doesn't have to be in your community to have access to it. And I think we talked to Oya in the past about getting the word out, trying to market there amongst heavier marketing around Jefferson County. So, you know, it's a mistake to make people think they have to have one of these projects in their community to have the benefits from them. And how we get that word out.
There is a lot of misconception about that right now.
So,
I thought it was geared towards the local community first. And if it was saturated, then it would go out further.
it's all in their marketing.
Yeah.
I think that's true though, if it were all, their offtake, if it's all consumed locally, there's nothing external, but it is anybody on the distribution. Period.
Yeah, it's not a preference for local, it's just a matter, as Paul said there, how they market it.
I mean, for a while, you could buy energy from Vermont if you chose to do so. I don't know how the electrons were sorted, but that was another issue scientifically.
The green one.
Yeah, that they actually don't sort the electrons.
Okay.
The electrons that show up in their house are just the ones that show up.
One question, they have little ribbons on them?
No,
Markers.
Markers, pins.
Building and grounds.
I got a question I wanna, it's gonna come back to us, I think, on pilots and the tax on particularly solar panels. Right now, the local taxing jurisdictions are not assessing small solar arrays, correct?
It's up to each taxing jurisdiction what they do.
Right. But, I mean, I'm seeing these 3 acre, 4 acre, 5 acres backyard solar arrays popping up all over.
3 acre size?
Well, some of them are, a couple of them, yeah, 2 acres anyway.
That would be kind of falling in almost personal versus commercial.
That would be up to the local, it'd be up to the local jurisdictions, like if the assessors are doing it correctly, they should assess them. Then if they're eligible for the exemption, you exempt it. They should be assessed, even if they're.
Are they assessing them, do you know?
You find
I
that a
believe
lot
so.
of communities.
They are in my house. I haven't hired an assessment, but it's been exempted too.
You find many communities are working in local solar ordinances and laws now, and some are farther advanced than others, and that typically comes up during the discussion.
So it's a work in progress right now.
So I think they're assessed. The question is whether or not they're applying for the exemption and when they're being exempted.
Because it's a question of, is it personal property or is it something else? If it's personal property, that has a different connotation under the laws relating to property taxes, not sales taxes, those kinds of things. And it's been an argument over, the state's had an argument for some time. When we first started with the wind projects, the question was, are the wind turbines personal property or are they part of the real estate test? And it's been argued in court and where it'll end up.
So when they assess them, are they assessing it, are they all coming in on the revenue generation side versus the raw assets side or the raw capital cost side?
If they're individuals, they would be based on revenue because that's a commercial appraisal standard, so.
So the towns are gonna be coming back to nuts and bolts of pricing.
I'm assuming so, yeah.
It'd be more of what does it contribute to the market? Let's say a residential system's gonna be, what does that increase the market value? Because there's not an income stream really. You can convert it to it. Like I know what I'm saving here on mine. If you wanted to convert it to it, I'd get a lower assessment than what they put on. But they're exempted, so by the time the exemption goes away, I'll probably be gone away.
Right. Okay, thank you.
So it all depends. If they're in there for revenue generation, I think the communities will look at it differently than they will if they're a backyard system. I've not seen any of these 1 acre things. I've seen a lot where they have maybe 40 panels out in the field. But then again, are they in this county?
Well, actually, I'm thinking of the array coming across, driving across Spring Valley Drive.
Yeah, that was a commercial one. That is one that all the power is going to St. Lawrence University, I believe, or Clarkson.
That's about a 2 acre?
No, it's bigger than that. I think it's a 10 acre. It's a good size one. I'm trying to think of the name of the company. But that's assessed. but it's exempted in Watertown. Now, I don't know what the school did with it, because it's that, because Watertown doesn't grant the exemption, so they may be paying taxes on
I had that question posed.
it. Was that town of Watertown, Spring Valley Drive?
Should be. I'm not sure what Roger did with that.
Because Roger sure what he did.
Probably not.
They're so new on these smaller systems that a lot of the assessors are looking to other assessors, how they handle them in other counties.
Okay, building grounds.
Building grounds, we met a few weeks ago there, and what we did, we tasked Don to get a value of the additional space that we have left over. But he's been unable to do that at this point because he's waiting to meet with Bob Hagman, which for some reason hasn't been able to meet with Bob to find out what their intentions are. So we're kind of a standstill at this point.
If it's about the interest of the board, we convening a meeting of the architects and engineers yesterday afternoon there, did another tour of the facility. I'm anxious to make sure that our communication between all of the various players, which may end up being the county, but certainly Architects for the Wise and our own individual architectural firms and so on, are well represented. I'm concerned about the complexity of what we're dealing with here and making sure that there is an arbitration process in hand so it doesn't get out of hand. Jerry Countryman is acting as our building and ground superintendent, and I'm going to make him essentially clerk of the works. We're down there a great deal. There's been several tours conducted. Yesterday we had the national architectural firm from the YN, and they revealed plans, preliminary plans anyway, for how this project is going to frame out. And I must tell you, it will be gorgeous. It will be beautiful. And to that end, I've asked chairmans if they would be willing to conduct next month's board meeting at the Y board, at our board facility on Arsenal Street, so that some of you who have not seen the inside of this facility in a long time would be able to get a sense of what we're dealing with. So with the permission of the chairmans, would you mark your calendar next month, and we'll convene a meeting at the Arsenal Street building. And by that time, we should have much deeper preliminary plans of the Y project. You'll be seeing some revelations of those shortly. And hopefully we'll have a lot more questions answered. At the moment, I have asked a furniture expert, a friend of mine from Syracuse, to come in and evaluate what we have in existing furniture and fixtures, and to see if there's a value we can capture some of the money that we're spending on a monthly basis to maintain the facility. He toured day before yesterday, certainly identified the fact that there is value there, and it won't be a lot, but it certainly is worth investigating. And lastly, I've had at least one request from a local Elia Masonry organization to be gifted some of the chairs and or furniture that is in the place. I haven't done anything with that yet. I haven't had time to really consider it. I thought perhaps that the best approach was to try to determine a value and then ask you folks what you thought you wanted to do. In this case, it's Sacred Heart Foundation looking for probably 10 chairs that we have, and there are literally hundreds down there. But I'll form this all out, and then you guys can have a kind of thought at how you want to dispense with all this.
Where is the appraisal at?
Well, I have put a significant amount of pressure on Mr. Kuhn to try to get it done. It isn't done. Frankly, we can't move forward with our letters to New York State until the appraisal is completed. I have been crafting in concert with Joe, the letter, and I think it's about 99%.
It is, I think what we're really lacking is the appraisal.
So as soon as we get the appraisal, which everyone is asking for, we'll get that letter set in. The letter in past identifies the fact that they have 90 days in which to respond. There are 5 different state agencies, and what I'm asking in the context of the letter is that they respond much sooner to affirm their position to go ahead, which I frankly think they will. And we'll do our best to try to stay on top of that, because moving this now on a timely basis is becoming ever more critical. And we have to move very quickly. We need, frankly, to pin down the county in terms of what they're considering.
60 days in that appraisal already, isn't he?
He has.
Is he giving me a reason why it's taking so long, Don? He did the original appraisal. I mean, just an update of that appraisal. It shouldn't be that difficult.
I can speak to the problems that we're having bank-wide industry and clients and the general public, but appraisers, they're very short-handed. The appraisal rules have just changed to increase the threshold from when we have to require one, because it's a dying breed. We just don't have enough appraisers and they're all backlogged. We have so many right now that we're waiting for closings because we can't get the appraisals. It's not just us.
I've asked Don repeatedly to move it up on the priority because of everything that's conditioned upon it.
So you're the reason mine's not being done.
I'm sorry, Chris. I've actually asked some of our mutual friends to put some pressure on them to try to get it done. I don't know. Certainly, the notion of using Mr. Kuhn was originally, the idea was he had completed this one in 13, had the basic information already in-house, and this simply would be an upgrade, therefore faster and less expensive. Well, I'm not sure that's necessarily worked out to be the case, but that was the
Can you get a commitment from him when he will have it done?
As soon as possible.
They say hopefully
that
next
was
week.
the commitment. Soon as possible.
That's the typical. Well, in the last 7 years, there's probably been a lot of changes in the industry and the market. And so probably a lot of the research has to be redone, which may take some time.
Yeah.
No question.
So, I mean, we don't want to BS, fly-by-night appraisal. We want something that if some agency starts to question it, is defendable. So he probably has to redo most of the research again.
Still, what you done with?
Unless it's for the savings bank, and then you just.
Rule out. We do resumes.
But is my perception wrong? Back to that appraisal, even when Kuhn comes back with his appraisal, arbitrarily, there could be a $300,000 to $500,000 range one way or the other in his appraisal. It's not
At least
out
that.
of
At least that.
So
We've got one data point, so there's only one building like that, so yeah.
So how accurate do you have to be when the window of it's gonna be $1 million, $500,000?
It's really somebody of some official capacity puts a stake in the ground. But, it's an awful lot like beauty in the eyes of the beholder. They're really, as Greg says, there may be one building in the entire upstate New York that even compares to that. Which is one of the reasons I hope we can do our board meeting next month there, because as many times as I walk that building, I am absolutely astounded with the size and the quality of that structure. I mean, it is absolutely incredible. And the engineers, again, yesterday, this lady from the national engineering firm came in and she was just blown away by this thing. She walked it again and again and just could not believe the building of that size, in this condition, is available to the Y. So
we've been curious to know if the Y's budget is on track, because they didn't base that on that building.
16 million is still their budget number.
Is it still on track for that number?
I think it has to be. I mean, we heard from Denise.
They gotta get through their A&E stuff first.
That's
They haven't
their
designed
hour.
anything.
That's all they're probably gonna be able to pull it, wrap it up.
My guess is they're still focused on their capital campaign right now, because that was one of their big things. They had to get, what, 4 million in a capital campaign.
Charlie Capper and his wife have agreed to handle the local campaign, as Paul points out. And by the way, Denise and, I'm not sure the architectural firm from them, but ours will be there next month. We will have preliminary drawings for you. I hope to have some information from the county by that time, although I'm not entirely sure we will, but.
Even if the county bails and decides not to come that way, we're still gonna be doing a design to move the entrance to that front right corner.
Already being designed, yeah, absolutely.
No, that's what I was gonna say,
I mean, we are moving forward with our design regardless of what our potential.
that front corner is very marketable. Very, very marketable, so
Wait till you see the design.
we should just keep moving forward.
I had that conversation with Denise at Christmas, and they'd already, because I was saying, questions on the arts, how are you going to incorporate the arts? And she said, oh, you won't believe it. It's like they've had that on the drawing board for 6 months.
Well, what I said to our architects, Albertine Courier, they took the preliminary plans yesterday from the entrance to the building, which are, again, they're just phenomenal. And they're going to modify those plans to incorporate the design for a second entrance for our piece that will look like it's part of the original artwork being done by the National. And it will be spectacular. That will be a 14,320 square foot marketable piece of property, whichever way we decide to go. And so.
All right. Jay.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good. Don't have a formal written report for you because I've inundated you with emails over the past couple of weeks. So just quickly, some of the things we've accomplished. We have a new website that we had started last week and completed last week called agricultureevents.com. That will serve as a resource for all of Jefferson County, not just for our agency. We have a new dairy video. I sent that out. Hopefully everybody got a chance to see it. That is done. We're getting a lot of positive feedback on that. Thanks to Great Lakes Cheese for helping us find the funding to make that possible. Very well received. Excited about it. For the March events, the fundraising is basically done. I received a check last night from Jefferson County Farm Bureau. There is a check coming in, I believe, today from Lundy Development. That should put us right at or maybe over the $10,000 goal that we had to help pay for the events in March. Not this Friday, but next Friday, Valentine's Day, if anybody wants to bring their significant other. We're having our last farmers luncheon of the season at the Gathering Barn at Old McDonald's Farm. The topic will be solar development on agricultural lands. We're going to have Katie Malinowski from Tug Hill Commission and Mike Knuckles from Cornell Cooperative Extension will be there talking about all the work that subcommittee, if you will, that I've mentioned before of all the agencies has done in providing guidance to the farm community on the pros, cons, things you need to think about for solar development. So there has been a tremendous amount going on, very exciting. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
What's that big on Carl?
He's making progress. Carl Robbins, Ren's father, he's making progress. It's been very difficult. Still, not out of the woods, but doing better than he was. It's just a tough situation because anybody that knows Carl knows that he's never off his feet. And
He never shuts up.
he's a character. But, you know, he's tough as nails, and thank God, because he wouldn't have made it through if he wasn't tough as nails.
I think the thing about Carl is, we all had those experiences with Carl, but he's somewhat of a legend, he's a character. But everything he's been through, tragedy on the farm and everything, and now this, you want to find somebody who's a more positive person. He doesn't condemn and tear everybody apart. And you think he turned mean and ugly at that age, but he doesn't. Good for him.
I will tell you, you know, we have helped the agricultural community heal through several tragedies over the years. Done a lot of posts on social media regarding those events, and done a lot of work with the media in general and the public in general through those events. With Carl's, when Ron asked me to put a post up on Facebook initially, I had just started to get phone calls about it, what happened, what's going on. That was actually the most widely shared post on Facebook that I've ever done. There was probably 50 different shares. At last count, I think we were over 15,000 people have viewed that post. So yeah, he is a legend of anybody I've ever dealt with.
You know Harold?
Yeah, a little bit before he passed. Yeah.
So, but yeah, he's making progress, but it's going to be a long road. Any other questions for me?
Thanks, Jay.
All right, thank you.
And we received Dave sent a big email on the marketing, he's, or manufacturing, excuse me. Got marketing back here.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Dave is on his way for an IEDC conference down in Tampa. Good time to be there right now. Dave and I did go down, kind of going a little out of script here, but Dave and I did go down to the annual, to a meeting, it wasn't the annual meeting, for the New York State Economic Development Council. And as usual, it was all about workforce. There was some other sort of interesting business recruitment breakout sessions, and I do have my notes that I'll give you guys on the way out, or I can send them to you digitally. But it was a very interesting meeting, and heard the comptroller speak, and it was great. A couple of interesting facts that 42% of New Yorkers have a high school degree or less, which was very eye-opening. 45% of New Yorkers are considered the working poor. And you know, on a positive note for that, some colleges are developing a micro-credentialing program to fill the gaps between the high school degrees and some college and then the degreed individuals. And it's kind of acting as a stepping stone to advancing in education. And like I said, I have there's another interesting thing that Center State is doing with a LinkedIn program for recruiting people that have lived in Syracuse, went to school there, born there, and then targeting some things to people that they're familiar with the area, and they're having some good success with that. And so, you know, quit my hand to copy someone else's program. So it's great. It's working. Another thing I touched on last month about we have a new Canadian consultant that we brought on board. This guy is a retired economic developer along the corridor there between Kingston and Belleville and Ottawa. He has lots of great contacts, a well-respected guy. We love going up there and seeing him until he retired last year. And you know, it's about the contacts and relationships he has, and he's working with 4 leads right now. And this is the way to you know, having people there with relationships. And he's just such a positive person, and the price is great. So that's wonderful. Another thing, you know, more on the direct marketing side, we're redoing a lot of our advertisements, and I'm also adding 2 marketing pieces. One, we're going to be advertising our loans through like a one sheet kind of piece. We really haven't had one of those in the past. We've talked about it. We've had, with people that are interested, but to actually have a piece of paper to use is important, as well as advertisement, or I refer to these as one sheets, but they're just marketing materials that talks about the services that we provide here. It's like a piece talking about us specifically. Our advertisements usually are, they're advertising the county and then how we can help. This is about the services that we can do to help your business. Whether it be, again, the grant advisement and consulting we can do, and business planning and modeling help, things like that. And obviously the job creation and tax-based incentives that we can offer where appropriate. So that's something that, I'm pretty excited about. I was hoping to have some drafts for you today, but they haven't come in yet from the graphics people. But I'm excited about it. Anybody have any questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Marshall. Unfinished business. New York State Ready Grant.
The deadline for application for the business resiliency funding from the governor's office, ESD, was last Friday. Last Wednesday, ESD asked me to come up and do a presentation on what this agency could do to assist business with their ready grants and how we would ameliorate the 5%, which is a commitment that the governor insisted on to be made by local governments to support the program. So we did that. There were about 150 businesses up there. Then the following day, Mr. Hageman asked staff to go up and appear in front of some of the municipalities who were trying to wrestle with how to deal with a ready grant. So Dave and Marcia and I went up. Our involvement there was not extensive. We did remind them that when seeker is done, if there's projects that we're involved in, we have to be identified within that process. We did explain to them how the 5% would not be a burden to local governments that are concerned that suddenly there's a requirement if these projects go forward to come up with an additional 5% cash, which of course they're not budgeted because this thing surfaced at the 11th hour. So we talked about things like our leaseback program through the IDA, where we could, provide some sales tax benefits. And according to the state, I hope some year we don't run into a problem with this. But I've talked to our controllers representatives who have been in the building for 4 months now, in excess of 4 months, about whether or not this will end up being a problem down the road a piece. But in any event, we seem to be kind of pushed into the notion that we'll do leasebacks for these businesses and claim that as part of the 5%. Lyle has graciously done what he always does, which is try to incorporate as much of our business plan as we can, all these things that have to be done to support a loan or a leaseback. Lyle will try to incorporate as many as he can of the process here rather than farm them out in any way. Hopefully we can save a few bucks. That will count to the 5%. In any event, on the business side, we know of 3 projects who will likely come to take advantage of